Hello, welcome back to the channel. Today's going to be a bit of a different video. I'm kind of just speculating over a race that I quite enjoy. This is the Ogre Kingdoms. I think they're my favorite Game 3 race, not over the entire trilogy. But they do suffer a bit from pre-order syndrome, or whatever the heck you want to call it. Essentially, they do have most of their roster, but a lot of their mechanics are just not fleshed out, they don't feel good, and they really do struggle in longer campaigns or on the battle map, kind of just in general. So, I have a couple of posts that I've made to Reddit, and I'd like to just kind of go over them. This is pretty, what's the word? Ideal for me, just because I've already set this up. If you want me to do these for future or other races, let me know, but I have not done the research on those, so that'll probably take some time, and I'll try to figure it out. But for the Ogres, this is something I already know tons about, so we're gonna go into it. First off, I'd like to go over updates that I think they need. Hopefully, in the future, they're gonna have a DLC. They are missing very key units, so I think CA very much planned to give them another DLC down the road. They also are only on 2 Lords, so I think that is very likely, but it's probably a ways to come. So this is kind of my own personal prediction. But updates I would like them to have, free updates that is, and this is in no particular ogre, but we'll just go down the ogre. No particular order, but let's just go down the list. So, ogre camps need to be given the ability to either move or increase the camp limits, or just remove them. The ability to have camps is what their entire race revolves around in campaign, and this is the campaign-specific one, but 7 or 6 camps, I think, is their max at the moment, depending on if you have Greases or not. And in the Immortal Empires campaign, that is like nothing. It's barely enough to get you the Mountains of Morn, and you're kind of really hard capped in economy at that point. So I think that should definitely be different. I also think they should be given the ability to move. I think Ogres strike me more as a Horde-y faction. Horde, aka not quite like Beastmen, but something in between, and I think camps, when I first heard about ogres and their camps, I thought that would be what it was, is you could move the camps around, kind of like the Black Arcs for Dark Elves, and that would have been great. So if they could do something like that, that would be super duper awesome. Also, buffing certain ogre big names and unique traits. There's a lot of ogre big names that suck. They give like a little bit of mass increase, or I think there's one called Fart Her, which is hilarious, but it only gives you plus 3% movement speed. And there's a Strider trait that literally is like 15 or 10% movement speed, which is miles better. So ogres, their little unique traits need to be buffed by a ton. A lot of the big names also just are not worth it. Most of the big names, in fact, aren't that worth it. I think it'd be better if you buffed a bunch, maybe nerfed a couple, just to kind of bring them all into a similar power so you can kind of be tempted by all of them. At the current moment, it's like, try to get an Oblar Kicker or Broommaker, don't really care about anything else. So that should be changed. Removing Gnoblar's units, their meat cost in campaign, is also something I think should really change. Gnoblars are not known for their feasting, at least not that I'm aware of. Ogre Bulls should have a meat cost, and I think that should definitely be a thing, but Gnoblars should be the opposite. In fact, if anything, they should, be the exact opposite. They should give meat, because ogres will often snack on them. But I don't really need that much. As long as they just don't cost meat, I think that'd be a nice little change. So that one's a small one. Next, and this is pertinent to multiplayer, add the Lore of Death and Lore of Heavens casters into their roster. You just need to change or add that to Slaughtermasters or Butchers. That is something they had on tabletop, and those 2 lores are very thematic to them. So I think that should be added, and that would be very useful and dynamic in multiplayer battles as well. So I would love that change. A couple of these are very much just aesthetics. I think Maneaters should have a variety of exotic outfits. Right now they just look like pirates, which is definitely a Maneater outfit. But Maneaters are known for being all over the place, so they should have like Cathay looking stuff, they should have Empire looking stuff, maybe even, I don't know about Lizardmen, but they should have a lot of different iconography and clothing options. And that can be totally random in each unit, or maybe it's like different unit types have different man-eaters have different clothes. I don't care. But I think that should change. Another one is Mournfang Cavalry. I think they should have their helmets, and I think Mournfang should have white fur. I don't know that was a thing in Fantasy, but in AOS, the white Mournfang look amazing, and I think that is the ideal look for a Mournfang, so I think I would love them to have white fur. If they don't, that's fine. But I also think they should have their helmets. The amount of armor on Mournfang Cav is pretty ludicrous, and not having helmets is a little weird. I know they were trying to go for different tiers, like, oh, Ogre Bull's riding Mournfang, and then Iron Guts riding Crushers. But Mournfang are leaps and bounds ahead of Ogre Bulls, and probably even Iron Guts at that point. So they should have helmets. They should look a little tankier. I think that's most of the aesthetic ones, but here's a couple more. This is more specific to multiplayer battles. Sorry if you can hear my little one in the background. She is playing. Anyway, these couple changes are more specific to multiplayer battles. Revert the Stonehorn missile nerf. They took the Stonehorns from 30% to 20% missile resist, which is not ideal. Stonehorns are literally stone skeletons. They eat rock, and it fossilizes their skeleton. That's why they're called a Stonehorn. So they have insane missile resist. They should have 30. And this nerf, I think, was more directed, in all honesty, to the Hunter that can give the Stonehorn a stock ability. If you're going to nerf something, nerf that, because that's the only thing that's really kind of strong for Stonehorns. Well, I mean, there's really strong pieces, but that's, if anything's OP, it's that. So I would nerf that instead. Also, I think you should give Sabertusks Vanguard by default. Ogres do not have a lot of Vanguard units. They do have a few, but Sabertusks would benefit greatly from that, and it would give the Ogres a bit of an ambush unit in the back to try and take out Siege and things along that nature, so, of that nature. So, I think that should be a thing. Another one is Scrag, Slaughtermasters, Butchers, and Gorgers should all have immunity to contact effects. I believe that's something that happened with Gorok's faction recently, a buff that made all of the Saurus immune to contact effects, and that's immune to, like, poison, I want to say fire, and blinded, different, contact effects, daze effect, all that stuff. They're immune to it. So that should be a thing, because that is literally in their lore. They are immune to all sorts of poisons and all sorts of things. So immune to contact effects, super flavorful, should be in. And then the last thing that I added was give Greasus his Noblar throne. I don't know how realistic that is. I would love for him to have that throne, but he should at the very least be bigger. And 2 Noblars pushing that man, that doesn't make any sense to me. I'm sorry. Like, I get he kicks the front wheel a little bit to help himself along, but like 2 Noblars is not enough to move that heaping hulk of a ogre. Like, he needs to be bigger, and he needs to have something more pushing him around, because it's very un-Greasus-like. So let's move over to the DLC prediction. So somewhere in the future, we're hopefully going to get a Ogre DLC. Now, this is going to be a little bit of a hot take, but hear me out. The missing units for the Ogre DLC, and the missing units we know, not any like random lore tidbits, this is stuff that was missing from their army book, is a Thunder Tusk, which is, it's like, if anything's iconic for ogres, it's the Thunder Tusk. Stonehorns might be just as iconic, but those two are hand in hand. Thunder Tusks are a poster child for the ogres. So the fact that they're missing tells me we're almost guaranteed a DLC. But Thunder Tusks, very much a frozen wasteland unit, and Yetis, again, high in the mountains of Morn, tons of snow. Yetis are in that army book and very, very essential. These are 2 very ice and snowy units. We're also missing a Bruiser, and though that's pretty much it for the units we're missing. So I think if you combine those, I feel like the aesthetic of this DLC is favoring Jared the Red. Now, Jared the Red is a long gone character. He's the first hunter of the ogres, and I think he would be super flavorful to be added into this DLC as like heading of the DLC. You could literally do like, hey, he was frozen in ice and now he's melted and he's back, right? The whole Boris thing. It would be great. So I think it's totally something they could do. Obviously he's thousands of years old, but there's plenty of years old characters in this area, or this game, so I don't care. Another addition I wanted to add was Blood Vultures. Blood Vultures are usually just a weapon type for Age of Sigmar, Thunder Tusk Riders, Huskards I think they're called. And so they're not really a unit type, but I think it would be super duper useful as ogres have access to 0 air at the moment. And ogres are so ridiculously hard countered by cannons. A really super chaff flyer would be imperative. It'd be so helpful for them to give them a little bit more options in that kind of a matchup. So it could literally be just trash as a Carrion or Feldats. Like, they don't have to be impressive at all. But I think that would be a fun thing to add. So I also threw Bragg the Gutsman as a hero. He's definitely a hero. I don't think he would be a legendary lord, but he could be like an assassin executioner character. It'd be pretty sick to see, but he would be a legendary hero, a unique one at that. Now, I know a lot of you would be like, yo, Jared the Red? No one knows Jared the Red. Why is he headlining this DLC? So hear me out. First off, the aesthetic matches, and I also would love a legendary lord that is like mounted on a Stonehorn or Thunder Tusk. That'd be sick. A little bit of a bias there, personal preference. But also, all the other legendary lords we know for the Ogre Kingdoms are easy free LCs. They're super easy free LCs. Now, I don't know that we would necessarily get them all, but if you look at Golgfag Maneater, that man, or Ogre, is a Maneater. He's the one that made all the Maneaters. He's literally the namesake of the Maneaters. He could totally come alongside a Dogs of the Desert DLC. Or Dogs of the Desert, good golly. Dogs of War. Sorry, I've been playing Conan Exiles. My bad. Anyway, Dogs of War. That DLC could drop, and Golgfag Maneater could totally be like a free LC alongside it. Get a bunch of mercenary mechanics. It'd be super duper flavorful. I think it'd be super cool. He's definitely probably the #1 pick. If he's not free LC, he would be headlining this DLC, not Jared the Red. Gark Ironskin is well known to be big pals with the Chaos Dwarves. They literally made his Iron Rhinox, so he would be super cool. I think he would also make a great free LC when the Chaos Dwarves drop, so just throwing that out there. And then last is Bragg Slave Lord. If there's any Ogre I don't think we'll see, it's Bragg Slave Lord. I think he's a very flavorful and cool character, but he's this Necromancer Ogre kind of in the background. Like, he's cool, but he's less unique than Scrag. He's less unique than pretty much any of these Ogre Lords. But he could come alongside Nagash, you know, whatever the heck, an undead DLC, and he's just this Necromancer Ogre that is a free LC alongside it. So I don't think Ogres would get that many free LCs, but just the fact that they go so well with a ton of future DLC races kind of leans me a little in the way of thinking Jared the Red might be the headliner, and the rest of these guys we might just get fed free LC content for. So either way, that is my speculation and prediction. I hope something to this degree happens. If all of that happened, I would be overjoyed, and the Ogres would basically be perfect in my mind. But regardless, let me know what you think. Tell me if some stuff is wrong or things could be added, whatever the heck you want. Let me know if you want me to try this for other races down the road. I can do my research and try to figure it out as much as possible, but for now, Ogres I know plenty about, and I kind of just got all this content on a whim. This few months of me posting on the Reddit, and I was like, you know what? I actually have like a great script here for a video, so that's what I'm posting. Let me know what you think, and I will talk to you later.